Hello everyone and welcome to The Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. On today's episode, you guessed it, Topaz Studio 2 again. Today we're looking at, should I dare say, the dreaded channel mixer filter. No, not too many people that I know of like this filter, understand this filter, or use this filter. Hopefully today I can demystify it for you somewhat. It's a hard one to wrap your head around and I've been dreading doing this video. So today I'm going to tackle it. I'm going to also link in the description below another video I've done. It's a Photoshop video about the channel mixer. And I broke the channel mixer down into great detail. And I think it's one of the easiest ones to understand. So please take a look at that if you will. And it basically works the same as the channel mixer here in Topaz Studio 2. Just about every software manufacturer puts a channel mixer in their software. But again, it's a really tough filter to wrap your head around. So hopefully today we'll get through this one. All right, stick with me. All right, let's get started. Let's come up to Add Filter, give it a click, come down to Channel Mixer, click on that. Opens up our channel mixer adjustment here. Of course, we have the opacity slider that we can control the amount of the effect we put on the image. We can have it at 100% or we can reduce it in level. We have blending modes, we have presets here, and we can save a preset, and we have a trash can. We can get rid of the filter if we get totally frustrated. We just click the trash can and say, I've had it. All right, but hopefully we won't come to that point today. So let's take a look here. Right here where it says channel, you'll notice we have 4 blocks here. We have a gray block, which encompasses all the channels, red, green, and blue. Then we have a red block encompassing just the red channel, a green for just the green channels, and a blue for just the blue channel. All right. I'll probably have to start and stop this video many times, so there'll be a lot of cuts probably in here, guys, because I'll tell you what, this is really tricky to try to explain. Let's start off with this gray block, which deals with the red, green, and blue channel. And you'll notice we have sliders, red, green, and blue. Of course, the red slider controls the red channel of the image, the green channel, and the blue channel. And the constant controls all channels together. To the right, we'll add more of all 3 channels. To the left, we'll subtract all 3 channels equally. All right. Let's start with the constant. But before I do that, there's this section right down here. See where it says maintain brightness? And we have a switch that says yes and one that says no. If we leave it on yes, whenever we adjust these red, green, and blue sliders, if I would adjust the red slider up to the right, the green and blue sliders would start to move to the left. Okay, so whichever slider I move one way, the other sliders will move the opposite way, keeping like a balance in the image. But let's start with the constant first. So the constant deals with all 3 channels, red, green, and blue. Imagine if they were all tied together. And if I move the constant to the right, watch what happens. I'm taking all 3 of those channels and putting more of the red, green, and blue in the image. It makes the image get really light. Or if I move it to the left, it makes the image go really dark. And you can see there's some cool possibilities there if you wanted to get a really cool looking effect in your image. Like that looks pretty cool. Or you may want to just lighten your image a little bit. Now you can go crazy with this and go to pure white just about, or pure black. So this is one you got to really be careful with. So that's the constant. That one's pretty easy to understand. Now let's come up to this little reset button here next to channel mixer. Click it and let's reset it. Now let me try to tackle the sliders here. Now remember, we're on this gray block dealing with the red, green, and blue channels. So if I were to take the red channel and move it to the right, watch what happens. The red tones in the image start to get lighter. But watch the other sliders. See them moving to the left? Now, if I come the opposite way, move it to the left, I'll darken my red channel, and the other channels get lighter. So it's maintaining a balance. So if you just wanted to darken reds, you could just move that to the left. Let's reset that. That was kind of easy to understand, right? Now let's go to the green channel. If I wanted the greens to be brighter, I can move this to the right. And they get brighter. If I move it to the left, the greens get darker. And you notice how the maintain brightness is causing these controls to move in tandem. I think that's the right word, together. Okay, so let's hit reset. Now we'll go to the blue. If I want the blue to go darker, I would move the blue to the left and I would darken the blues. If I want the blues to go lighter, I would move it to the right. Okay, let's click reset up here again. Well, that's the gray slider. I think I'm going to stop the video now and regroup, and I'll come back for the red, green, and blue. And I'm back. Oh, before I hit the red, green, and blue, I didn't show you what the no does, so let's click on maintain brightness, no. Now, let's go over the red channel again. So if we want the reds to go lighter, I'll make the reds lighter. Okay, but you notice the whole image is kind of going light. Now, if I take the green slider back, I can darken the greens up, and if I take the blue slider back, I can darken the blues up. So there's two different ways of working. You could let Topaz figure this out for you with the maintain brightness on, or if you want to figure it out yourself and get really critical adjustments, you can leave it off and then just kind of like play with these and tweak them. So look, I want to darken my blues a little bit. I want my greens, maybe I'll make my greens a little bit lighter, and let's make my reds a little bit darker. And you can just play around with these and just mix them around and see what you can get. But just remember, when you move the red slider to the right, it's going to lighten reds. Move it to the left, it's going to darken reds. It's that simple, really. Move the green side to the right, it'll lighten greens, and darken greens to the left. Blues, lighten blues to the right, darken blues to the left. Now, it'll also shift these other colors around a little bit too, so you have to be careful, because it's blending things. And remember, red, green, and blue make up all colors. So there is mixing going along here, hence the channel mixer, right? And that's what we're doing here. So we're mixing colors around, like as if we had a paint palette and we picked a little bit of phthalo blue. Remember Bob Ross? We're going to take some phthalo blue and mix a little alizarin crimson here together. And we're coming up with this really interesting color here. And we're going to throw this on our happy little mountain. Okay, but that's basically what you're doing with the channel mixer. You're mixing your colors around. Okay, so let's go to the green here again. Let's say I want a little more brightness on the green, a little more lightness on the green. So we lighten that up a little bit. And then we say, well, my reds got too light now, and they changed tint a little bit. So let me go to my red and pull that back a little bit. Okay, and now my green got a little darker, so I'll bump it up a little bit. So it's a little juggling act here, right? And then I might have to go to my blue and say, you know what, I want my blue a little darker. But now my green got darker when I did that, so now I might have to bump my green up a little bit. And you see, you gotta just juggle around and play with it. This is all about playing. You just gotta play. As I told you before, anytime you're working with photo editing software, please, by all means, don't be afraid to move sliders. You will not break the software, I guarantee you. And the only way you're really going to learn is by experimentation and moving things around. That's the way I've learned, and that's the way I'm teaching you. Play with those sliders and see what they do. All right, so I'm going to cut again and get on to the red, green, and blue. And I am back. So now we're going to look at red, green, and blue. So let's click on red. Red represents the red channel. Green represents the green channel, and blue represents the blue channel. So right now we're on the red channel. You notice red is set to 1. That's 100%. So I have 100% of red coming through on the red channel, and I have no green or blue coming through in the red channel. When I click on green, I have 100% of green coming through on the green channel and no red or no blue. When I click on the blue channel, you guessed that I have 100% of blue coming through on that channel and no red or no green. So let's go back to the red. Now, this is very interesting. The way these sliders work, and think of mixing paint here. So, with the red channel, if I move the red to the right, I'll be adding more red to the overall image. If I move it to the left, I'll be draining red from the image. If I take the green and I move it to the right, I'm not going to be adding green to the image. And this is where it gets a little tricky, and it's kind of hard to wrap your head around. If I move the green to the right, I am on the red channel, right? So if I move the green to the right, I'm adding more red to greens of the image. If I move the green side to the left, I'm subtracting red from the greens of the image. This is how I'm mixing colors here, all right? And if I go to blue, if I move the slider to the right, I'm adding more red to the blue tones of the image. If I move it to the left, I'm subtracting red from the blue tones of the image, and that's pretty interesting. So you got to wrap your head around that, and you may have to go back and watch this a few times to get this understanding of how this works, okay? So let's start with red. If I move my red slider to the right, I'm adding more red to the overall image. If I move it to the left, I'll drain red out of the image. See, right now there's no red in the image whatsoever. So let's double click red. Now I'm on the green slider. So when I take the green slider, move it to the right, I'm adding green. I'm not adding green, I'm sorry. I'm adding red to the green tones of my image. If I move it to the left, I'm subtracting red from the green tones of my image. So think about that. I'm going to double click green here to reset it. What if you had an image and it had a red cast on the green tones? You could go to Channel Mixer, go to the red channel and pull the reds back off of the greens of your image and get rid of the red cast on greens. Kind of interesting, right? Now let's look at the blue slider here. So if I take the blue slider to the right, I'll be adding red to the blue tones of the image. And if I move it to the left, I'll be subtracting red from the blue tones of the image. All right, so let's double click that. Now let's go to green. So we're on the green channel, and the green channel is at 100%, and the red and blue are at 0. So I'm going to start with the green slider. Let's move it to the right. We'll add more green to the overall image. Move it to the left, we'll start to drain the green out of the image. All right, let's double click green. Now with the red, if I move the red slider to the right, I will be adding green to the reds of the image. So watch when I move it. I'm adding green to the reds of the image. If I move it to the left, I'm going to be subtracting greens from the reds of the image. All right, so let's double click red. Now we'll go to blue. If I move blue to the right, I will add green to the blues of the image. There we go. If I move it to the left, I'll be subtracting green from the blues of the image. Let's double click it. And now let's go to blue. And now you notice blue is at 100% and red and green are basically shut off. They're at 0. So now we'll take the blue channel and I'll take this blue slider and move it to the right and we'll add blue to the overall image. Okay. If I move it to the left, I'll be draining blue out of the image. Double click blue to reset it. Now we're going to go to red. So when I move the red slider to the right, I will be adding blue to the reds. If I move it to the left, I'll be subtracting blue from the reds. Let's double click red. Now if I go to green, if I move green to the right, I'll be adding blue to the green tones. If I move it to the left, I'll be subtracting blue from the green tones. Let's double click it. And that's basically how it works. So watch this video again a few times, and I think it'll all start to come clear to you. It's really can be kind of confusing, but if you really ponder this, it will come to you. Now, let's look at the constant. All right, everything is reset now. And I'm on the blue channel. So if I move this constant to the right, I'll be adding more blue to the overall image. And you see the whole image goes blue. If I move it to the left, I'll be subtracting blue. And remember, the opposite of blue, RGB, red, green, and blue. The opposites are CMY. The opposite of blue is yellow. So when I move this constant to the left, the image will start to turn yellow. So that constant slider can be a good adjustment too for you there. So I want to go over this constant slider with you too. Let's double click constant. Now let's go to green. The opposite of green is magenta. So if I take the constant slider to the right, I'm going to add more green to the overall image. If I move it to the left, I'm going to add magenta because I'm subtracting green from the image. So notice how the image goes more magenta. Let's double click constant. Now let's go to red. And the opposite of red is cyan. So we're going to move the constant to the right. We're going to add more red to the overall image. Move it to the left. We're going to subtract red. The image will go more cyan when I go to the left. So let's double click constant. All right, so there you go. That's how the colors work for mixing colors around. So you have your box of crayons and your palette here, so we can all become Bob Rosses in the digital world and mix our colors on a beautiful little color palette right here inside of Topaz Studio 2. I'm going to cut, and then we're going to come back, and I'm going to talk to you about the monochrome. All right, now we're ready for monochrome. So let's come down, see where it says monochrome here. No, let's click on yes. And we can either use maintain brightness yes, where these sliders will work together, or no. I prefer to use it with no because I think I can get a little more flexibility out of the adjustments. Okay, so usually what I'll do here is just come here and start dragging these sliders around and see what looks good. All right, so we're on the gray block here. So what I'm going to do is come and move my red slider to the right. Any tones that were red in this image will get lighter when I move this red slider to the right. Any red tones will get darker when I move it to the left. So let's move it to the right a little bit and see if that's looking good. Nah, I'm going to move it to the left. And anything that was red is getting darker. So look, I'm adding some really cool contrast into the image here. Now let's take our green slider, let's move it to the right a little bit and see if we want to lighten anything up to add contrast and make a more interesting black and white image. That's not bad. Go to the left. I don't like it. It's getting too dull. So I'm going to go maybe right around there. I think that's looking pretty good. I don't want to blow out my highlights, but I think that's looking kind of nice. Now let's try our blues. And I think blue was up here. I remember blue was up here. So if I move blue to the right, that area up here should get lighter. Yeah, and it does. And see how it can blow out too, so you got to be careful. So let me take my blue and move it to the left. And those blue tones. See how that blue tone's getting dark up in there? That's looking pretty cool. I kind of like that. I don't like what happened to my whites here, so it's a juggling act. I might have to play around with these sliders. So let me just get this blue to where I think it looks kind of nice. That looks kind of nice. So now I may want to bump this green slider to the right a little bit more. Yeah, something like that. And now let's go with my red slider. And maybe do something like that. That's looking pretty good. Let me check my green again, see if I can add a little extra contrast. That's looking nice. Let's play with my blue a little bit. Yeah, make that a little bit darker. Now let's go to our constant. And if I move this to the right, the overall image will get a little lighter. Okay, so I might just want to brighten it up. Or if I want the whole overall image to get a little darker, I can move it to the left. And I can, get a really high contrast look here. That looks kind of cool. That's not bad. But let me just pop it open a little bit here. I don't want to go too nuts here. I'm just going to double click it and get it back to where it was. That's not looking too bad. Let me see this green here again. Maybe right around there, and maybe pull this blue back. And I'm just playing. So I think that looks like a pretty nice black and white conversion. Before I go, let's play around with this image with the channel mixer just a little bit. Just give you like a real world editing example here. What if, say, for instance, I wanted to make the blue more saturated, the green more saturated, and the red more saturated? Let's see if we can do that with the channel mixer. So let's first go on to let's start with red. So let's click on red, the red channel here. And let's see, I'm going to pull a little more red into the image. So you can see the red's getting a little more red. And now might have added some red to the blue here. In fact, I have, into my green. So let's drain some of the red out of the green. So let's just move this back a little bit. And there we go. I've drained the red out of the green. And now let's drain the red out of the blue. So let's take this blue slider and just drag it back. Like that. Now I've drained the red out of the blue. Let's click on the center of the image to see it before and after. Okay, so I've made my reds a little bit more red. This is what I wanted to do. Now let's go for our blues up here. So now let's go to the blue channel. And let's take the blue slider, move it to the right. Make our blues a little more blue, somewhere maybe right there. And now I've added blue into my green and into my red. So let's drain the blue out of the green by taking the green slider, moving it to the left. I'll remove blue from green. Get my green back to green. Somewhere around there looks good. And let's take a little bit of that blue out of the red. So let's move our red slider to the left. And take that out of. Okay, so let's click in the center. So, all right, that's before and there's after. So I've made my red more red and my blue more blue. And now let's see if I can make my green more green. And let's see here. So let's go to the green channel and let's pop up my green to the right a little bit. Not too much, just a little bit, maybe right around there. And let's drain the green off the red. Right about there. And take some green off the blue. Make that right there. And now let's click in the center. So there's the before and there's the after. So look at the color pop we got there. We've worked with red, green, and blue. So there's the channel mixer. There's a lot you can do with the channel mixer. I did not cover everything, but I think I gave you enough for you to understand the channel mixer, understand how it works. And from here on out, guys, just experiment with it. I know you're going to like it. Play with it. If you have questions or comments, please leave them in the comments section below, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Well, there you have it. I survived this training today. I hope you did too. Thank you so much for joining me on The Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. If you like this video today, please give it a like and share it with your friends. Also, if you're not a subscriber, please do so and click the bell notification icon. This way you'll be informed of all the new training videos that I'm putting out. Well, again, thanks for sticking with me with this long training video today, and we made it. I hope this helps you understand the channel mixer. I'll see you right here for the next one on The Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. So long for now.